So 2014, I suppose education was very different as it looks today. 2014, what were the major challenges that you faced?
It was a very emotional journey. I asked them, if you could have anything in the world, what would it be?
Is that even a question? We were ever taught about the word emotion per se when we were growing up. I'll be harsh saying it. The intelligent of tomorrow will not be the people who learn well, but it will be the people who know how to unlearn the things first.
It doesn't mean that you have to agree with them, but it does mean that you have to understand. When I approached my parents, I come with, hey, Dad, I understand that. What are you thinking about?
Trust your kids. They also want to make a living and they want to make you proud. All right, welcome to a brand new episode of Let's Talk Education. My name is UV, and on the other side of the table, I have Susan Xiong with me, who is the founder and CEO of Hopeful Encounter from the US. Welcome to Let's Talk Education, Susan.
Thank you, UV. I appreciate you making time to have me today.
What a beautiful day in Thailand. That is where we are hosting this podcast. And we've got Susan to talk about educational, probably on the emotional front. That is what we're going to talk about in the episode to follow. But Susan, firstly, how is it at the World School Summit?
It's been great. I love it that you guys are hosting it in Bangkok for the 36th edition. Just exploring the rich culture here has been wonderful, and the amount of people and food and shopping that we can do is it's just, I'm just thankful that there are massage parlors that open late for after shopping.
All right, Susan is the co-founder and CEO, as we told, about Hopeful Encounters. Tell me about Hopeful Encounters.
Yeah, so we were established in 2014, and we are based in Fresno, California in the US. And initially when we started, our intention was focused on education equity in Southeast Asia. And for us, what that looked like was ensuring that there was classrooms that was conducive for learning for the students. And so we focused on school construction. And then after school construction, it was engaging parents and students and the teachers in ensuring that they were committed in the success of their child and their students in the academic journey.
So 2014, I suppose education was very different as it looks today,
Yes.
12 years after. 2014, what were the major challenges that you faced while you were working in Southeast Asia? What countries were the focus areas?
I think the biggest challenges was internally. I was born and raised in America, and my entire education knowledge was the Western American education system.
Right.
And so when we went back to Laos, and I started learning about their education system, the biggest challenge for me was like unlearning what I have learned in America, because I was very conscious and I had to be very intentional to ensure that what I was bringing to Laos or to Southeast Asia was not going to be ethnocentric and just focusing on the Western education system. And so I had to come to Southeast Asia and as a blank canvas, like I had to intentionally and mindfully like erase all that I knew growing up, and I had to really absorb what I was learning and what was normal in Southeast Asia, particularly in Laos, because that was where we first started.
So in 2014, as I said, you were starting. What was your first impression when you came to Southeast Asia? Was it the way you expected? Was it contrast? Was it very different? What was the first impression based on your intake of education, probably?
Oh my gosh. Okay. just asking that question's like I'm all goosebump because, oh my goodness, when I first stepped into a school campus in Laos, it was like complete culture shock. Even coming into Laos was culture shock for me. But going onto the first primary school campus and seeing that we arrived in Laos in 2015 in January, and so if you can imagine, it was like winter, it was
Right.
cold, and we were in the northern part of Laos, and so it was cold. And my nose was just red. I had a running nose because it was just cold. And seeing the students come to school in flip-flops and sandals, and then they had to take off their shoes outside and walk into their classroom, which had dirt floors. And the floor was moist. You can see it was like dark soil, so you can tell it was moist. And I was just thinking in my head, oh my gosh, I am freezing. And these students are in the classroom cold without any shoes on. And so in my mind, I was just thinking, like, how are they learning? This is normal. Like, I had to really just emotionally regulate myself and say, like, hold on, calm down, Susan. There's nothing wrong with this image. Like, it's only wrong in your head, right?
Right.
It was a very emotional journey, both the culture shock and emotionally. I was talking with a lot of the students, and the questions that I was asking, the question that I was really focusing on when I was talking with the students was, I asked them, if you could have anything in the world, what would it be? And a lot of the students just kind of looked at me and was like,
is that even a question?
yeah, like, why are you asking that question? For me, it made me feel like they never anticipated anyone would ask them that question ever. And so, and then I met this young girl. She was in the 3rd grade, and she said, if I can have anything in the world, it would just be to do well in school. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And so I'm still so emotional about that story because that was my first trip ever out of the United States. And I didn't know what to expect. And here was this little girl in the 3rd grade. And for some odd reason, her response was just comforting me. And I was thinking, like, oh my gosh, does she know, like, does she even know what she is doing to me, like, emotionally, like how she is helping me regulate myself and reflecting about my own emotions at this very moment. And so the power that she had, I didn't even know if she knew that she had that, I don't, like, just, the amount of power in her words was able to just conjure me back and allow me to reflect.
Was probably that the moment when you thought that these kids, above anything or before anything, have to be dealt with emotionally more than anything else?
Quite honestly, at that moment, I felt a little bit embarrassed because I was thinking, like, wow, here is this little 3rd grade girl, and she is regulating an adult with no effort, right? She's doing it, like, unconsciously.
Right.
And that was the moment that I realized within myself that I still had a lot of work to do and a lot of learning to do. And in that journey, I had so many of those moments, and all of that accumulated into yes, we do need to focus on the emotional well-being of our students.
Do we do enough, even back in US, by the way? I'm not talking specifically about Southeast Asia, even in the US. Do we do enough with kids growing up emotionally? Do we take care of them consciously?
I think the word enough is subjective. Like, for me, I might feel like I'm doing enough for my child, my children, right? But if you're asking my children, they're probably thinking no. And so, in terms of how we are doing with social emotional learning with our students, I think we have to be conscious of the individual needs. It's not a cookie cutter theory or practice that we can just roll out and everybody falls into one program or one theory. But we have to be very intentional about how we're serving our students and how we're being there for them, right? Because I might feel like me sitting here with you and you giving me your time, that for me is great, right? But for someone else, they might feel like, you're listening, but what else are you doing while we're sitting here, right? So they might need more than I need. And so we have to think about equity for emotional support, social emotional learning. It all has to do with equity. Just having it in place doesn't mean that every student is getting the emotional support that they need.
Let me come back to the first question then. How important is it though? I'm not saying as an education system all of us do enough. That I know back in our country in India, it's all about the ranks, the numbers, coming, attaining a certain position, attaining a certain skill. It's all very practical. It's all very competitive. And I think in the race, the world that we're chasing, which is getting faster by the day, what we are forgetting is that emotional quotient that I think, if I can say that, is pretty much wiped off from growing up age. And we don't consciously accept that it is going to make very hard individuals when they grow up. Because kids, if they're not taken care of their emotional well-being, they will become someone that we might fear because there will be no emotions to cater to. Now, do you think as systems across the world, with your experience in the US, in here, in Southeast Asia, do we think is there even an attempt to help? Because I don't think back in India, we were ever taught about the word emotion per se when we were growing up.
Yeah. I think we have to understand also not just the perspective of students and the deficient thinking that we come in and say, like, there's not enough of this or there's not enough of that. But we have to come in with an understanding of how were the parents raised? How was the school system developed, right? All of that compounds and impacts how the student is raised, how the student is regarded in the school environment. And when social emotional support and learning is like super important in my perspective. It is so important because we have to learn how to deal with our big emotions. And when we do not know how to deal with our big emotions, we explode, right? And when we don't take accountability for our behaviors, what starts to happen? We start to blame others, right? We start to have all of these bad behaviors and no consequences. And so we have to understand that the way parents were raised and the way they're raising their own children, it's not moving as fast as the world is, right?
Correct.
And also we have to consider that students are living in two worlds. They're living in the mainstream world, right? And then they're living in their family
which are very different.
Yes, very different. And so regardless of our kids in Laos going to school, going to their school in Laos and then coming home, they still have their own responsibilities in that family unit, right? And so it's important for us to understand that as parents, nobody taught us how to be parents. We in a sense took on the generational trauma that our parents unknowingly, right, gave to us.
Correct.
And that was how we shaped our world, right? And so as we have children and we start to raise them, we have to be conscious of what is triggering for me? How do I deal with my anger? And why is my kid, like, them throwing a tantrum? Why is that triggering me? And how come I cannot control my anger to their behavior? Right? So.
That brings me to a point. This is about 8-9 years back when I heard something that The intelligent of tomorrow will not be the people who learn well, but it will be the people who know how to unlearn the things first.
Yes.
So unlearning a lot of, if I can say, I'll be harsh saying it, but the trauma thing that we get, unlearning all of that, coming back to zero and then starting afresh, that is a challenge for a lot of us. But then we're talking about socio-emotional things. And then the priority, especially in countries like Southeast Asia, because of the unknown glory that we are chasing, is the ranks, the numbers to come first, the positions. Do you think the pace of the world, if it is at 5x, let's say, assuming, and the pace of the socio emotional behavior is probably a 2x, this gap will always keep increasing by the day. Do you think it's going to be really ineffective, or it's really going to be out of control that we can, in any probability, bridge the gap tomorrow? Is it a fear do you have?
You know, I think our young people gives me hope all the time. And for me, the gap is always going to be there because there are so many different types of people in this world, so many different cultures, right? And so I think when we look at education success and the success of young adults and then adult life, we have to consider like the suicide rates, right? The substance use abuse that happens within our own communities. And how big is that connection to education and to family family legacy or family image, right? I don't know if in India you guys have a reputation to keep.
Oh, tell me about it.
But the responsibility of everybody in a household to keep the reputation of that family, right? Or the head of household, to keep the reputation of the head of household or the last name, right? For example, like if you're a Smith, then that means that you have this long legacy of I don't know, business, right? And maybe 3 generations down, you still have to uphold that reputation, right? And so that comes with the generational trauma. And when we don't look at that, we start missing the suicide rates, the substance use that starts to happen, or the recklessness, right? Some children just start to behave recklessly, right? Because they're unable to cope with the big
pressure.
Yes, the pressure and the
So
big emotions.
They succumb to the pressure probably. How do you counter that? Very honestly, very straightforward. If this is a situation, this is a very similar situation in India. You know, there are certain households who will be into entrepreneurship and business, legacy businesses of 4 generations, 5 generations. And the moment a kid is born, it is expected of him or her to take care of the same thing. You know, they might probably growing up have another profession, have another interest, a passion, a hobby that they would want to pick. But because it's the 4th generation, you know, doctor's son would be a doctor, a businessman would continue the same legacy, the family legacy. This is pretty much not even talked about back in India. But I'm sure there will be somewhere or the other these 19, 18-year-old students who would want to pick up, let's say, art, you know, probably a sport.
Yes.
But they can't, you know, and this is unsaid. Because here in India, we are not even subject to discussing, sitting in a family openly that, oh, dad, mom, this is what I want to pursue. This is what my interest lies. This is what I think I see myself doing 5 years from now. You can't even discuss that fairly in, let's say, on a dinner table probably. So that pressure is unsaid. How do you cope up with this if this is a problem that comes to you?
Yeah, so I think the dynamic of the family unit is very important. And I encourage all young people to learn how to navigate that dynamic. I know you asked about family structure in India, but I don't want to presume I know anything. But in our culture, it's hard for us. Growing up, it was hard for us to communicate with with my father.
Right.
And so, like you said, it was hard for us to say, I want to grow up and I want to do this. It was hard for us to say, like, can I get lessons in piano, right? Because for them, education meant something totally different. And it meant, for them, in their head, education meant you study, you read, you take exams, and you do well.
Right.
But for me, it wasn't that, right? And so the disconnect of what their vision of education was compared to mine, it was hard to communicate. But as I've grown up and as I've started this journey, I have learned that having a relationship with your parents goes a long way. And so it doesn't mean that you have to agree with them, but it does mean that you have to understand. And so when you understand, for me, it has opened a lot of doors. And so when I approach my parents, I come with, hey, Dad, I understand that you see blah, 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 so-and-so in such a way. I'm wondering if, so-and-so or such and such, right? And so I come in not as a threat to his vision of what education is, but I come in seeking, right? And so then he takes the prerogative to educate me. And oftentimes that was very much of, what are you thinking about, right? Are you nuts?
Mostly, not occasionally, mostly this.
Yes, mostly. But that doesn't mean that I give up. It means that I have to protect my dream.
Right. But Susan, this is one side of the thing. Why don't we talk enough about probably educating and hoping that our parents will also understand? The other way around. Herein, we are talking the kids to somewhere or the other get into that balance of, having a good relationship with your parents, being open about what you want to do, present it in a particular way, not offend them, don't dictate terms, the tonality, the communication should be pretty apt. This is the student or the kid per se. How about telling parents also, probably having workshop with a lot of parents, telling them that the world is changing every single day today. That brings me to a point that whatever education system on globe we are following, we are still not preparing the kids for the uncertainties that are going to hit us tomorrow.
Right.
The current AI wave, where a lot of layoffs, the big companies, etc. Great. We're still preparing engineers who will look for jobs in 2 years. And they don't even know if the jobs, the profiles that they're seeking will exist.
Right.
So probably that tells us that we should have workshops with our parents, that, probably you've grown old, and with due respect for your experience and the things that you know of the world, there's an ever-changing world that your kids have to tomorrow follow. You don't. You've made a career for yourself, and we're proud of that. But your kids tomorrow who are following, they're going to go out in this world with a degree probably, which they only took because you wanted them to take that particular degree.
Yes.
And it's going to be of no value in the world tomorrow. So at least let them express themselves the way they want. Probably pick up a hobby. I read this, I know this is very glorifying, but I read that art will save the world. We're coming down to that circle where probably the simplest things, or probably the most innocent things, which art is, will actually save the world, because everything else is all machined and wired and AI and systems and engineers. That's what's being done. That's how it is being fed. So can we in any way get hold of the parents probably to tell them that trust your kids. They also want to make a living and they want to make you proud.
That's true. Right. You are absolutely right. That is a lot of pressure to put on a child. For parents, they have to be more self-aware. And so when you hit a certain age, your brain plasticity is not as moldable as someone who is young. And so it takes you a lot longer, and it's harder for someone who is much older to change. But that is not a reason for parents to not make the change.
Correct.
Right? As far as educating parents, I think that is one of the biggest challenges that we also have. But what I have learned is that when we get parents, the school environment is perfect. Right? For example, if we get parents to come in to see all of their child's accomplishments, right? And teachers and institutions start really buying into the social emotional learning practices instead of, a lot of times what I've seen is the social emotional learning is there, but the focus is not on social emotional learning. Right? They have it there so they can check off a box and say, yep, our school has it, right?
That's very pseudo learning.
Yes.
Just ticking the boxes for no reason.
And so I think schools, right, it's the responsibility of institutions to re-educate their communities. And it has to happen at a community level. It can't happen at just like individual family units. The healing of how family operates and how family learns about what the economy is growing into has to be done at a community level. And I understand that moving at the community level is very slow, but that's how healing happens.
Okay, so I'm going to throw a challenge to you. There are three variables in what we've been talking, healing and socio-emotional thing. The community and the institution, that's one part. The second is probably the family, the parents. And the third is the kid himself, the child himself. Three variables. All three are important. None of them can change. You divide the pie chart or the pie on the scale of 100 of what is the most important factor, then the second, and then the third. What would it be then?
Gosh.
And this is for all the kids, because this is, I think this is a challenge beyond boundaries. Doesn't matter what country you come from.
Yeah.
I think the family legacy is a responsibility that keeps taking your head. Second is your own thing. I wanted to pick up a sport. I could not, because probably my family circumstances didn't allow. Time and again, I used to go to my father. I'm good at this sport. I'm good at this sport. Let me dedicate myself to this. Give time to this. And I'm sure he had challenges. He was foreseeing my future 10 years from now. What if I fail in the sport? Where will my son earn the bread from? Probably he's also right. And then the society and the community, which is very competitive, which gives you probably 1 or 2 chances and not more than 2 chances. So how do you divide, if you have to complete the chart at 200, these three variables? Which is the most important?
The most important is yourself, right? Because you have no control over your environment, right? But you have control of the decisions that you make and how you impact your environment. So as a child, that's very hard because children have no control over their environment. Parents have control, right? But as the child, you need to understand yourself, be aware of yourself, right? And set your own boundaries. Be strong in your convictions of what you believe. And for me, I feel like everything else will follow, right? And so if you are the parent, you have to start being more self-aware, right? Why are certain things triggering you? Why is your child going into sports not okay with you? Why? Why do I have this fear that they're not going to succeed in 10 years?
Correct.
Because all of that comes back to you, right? So it's not right that you're telling your child they can't do something because of your own personal fear, right? And then also as an institution, what is your responsibility to the community, right? And are you even listening to the community? Have you asked the community, what is it that our community is looking for? Right?
I think all these three factors, I don't know what factor you belong to, if you're one of our viewers, but all of us on an individual level have a certain responsibility, which tomorrow will actually funnel into producing a great talent, a success story, probably, all of that. Great, Susan. We've gone too deep into this conversation probably, and the emotions are also there. But coming back to hopeful encounters, what do you think lies ahead? The next 4 years, 5 years? 5 years is too long a scale, especially in this era of AI,
Yes.
dominant AI. But where do you see yourself and hopeful encounter going?
I think the economy with AI, it's changing so fast. And I think for a hopeful encounter for us, it is expansion and growth, but with our young people in the forefront.
And some countries that you're specifically eyeing? Are there any?
Yes, and so promoting and dedicating our time to our young people in Laos, in Thailand, and in America, in our own communities.
Great. Curious, but where do you get this name from? Hopeful Encounter.
Yeah, so we started the nonprofit when my son was 8 years old, and we were sitting in the car, and we were throwing names for like days, and he was just so tired of it, and he was just like, well, based off of what you're saying, it has to do with like, like an encounter, and so I was thinking about that, and I was like, yeah, like one serendipitous like encounter can change the trajectory of someone's life, right? And so we said, how about a hopeful encounter? And my son says, yeah, that sounds great. Just go with that.
Now imagine an 8-year-old giving this suggestion.
Yes.
Wow. Brilliant.
Yes.
Great. So that is how Hopeful Encounter came to fore.
Yes.
Brilliant. Any challenges that you see coming up?
Yes. There's always challenges in running a nonprofit. But I think being there as a vehicle of change for our young people, especially in this day and age where our economy is just moving so fast, we have to be there to meet them at the pace and at the space that they need to be met at. And so I think that's going to be one of our biggest challenges.
Great. Again, when you tell this to your friends and your social circle back in the US, running a non-profit organization can be very taxing because there are a lot of things that you need to absorb also. There is, above anything else, there is this faith, there's this support and the intent behind what you're doing. What was the reaction of your family, extended family, the people you're close to back in the US? How did they react to, and how has their reaction changed in these 12 years?
Yes. Interestingly enough, I think we were met with a lot of doubt. But in anything that is life-changing, we always meet with doubt, right? Because that brings us comfort. So I think in the past 12 years, we've seen a lot of people come around and a lot of people say great things about the work that we have done. And I think most importantly, it is just understanding that running a nonprofit is a lifestyle. Because all of my kids and my family is a part of everything that we do in our organization.
Correct.
And then our team members, they become family for us as well. And so we've kind of forged like this big family unit, right? And it's so hard to get people in your tribe, right, that are passionate about the same thing that you are, right? And so finding that group of people that is passionate about what you're passionate about and willing to go that extra mile is so important. But it has to start with a small group of people, right? And it grows from there. Yeah.
Fantastic. I think we've pretty much touched every emotion that we could. We've talked the practical side, we've talked the insights, a little past about Hopeful Encounter. Anything else, Susan, before signing off, that you'll like to share for our viewers or with our viewers?
I think for all of our young people, the future is uncertain, right? but it's coming fast because tomorrow is already the future. And so don't be afraid to learn about yourself. Don't be afraid to use your voice to stand up for yourself. And most importantly, like the movie, in the pursuit of happiness, you have to protect your dream because no one else is going to do it for you. But you don't have to do it alone.
And also this ever-changing world, never forget to be a little empathetic also.
Yes.
That's very important. Fantastic. Thank you for your time, Susan.
Yes.
And all the best with the hopeful encounter. And
Great.
probably with, as the name says, where there's hope, there's everything else. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.